But did you already do the
I
intro?
introed you. It was amazing.
Okay. Oh, okay. I'm sorry I missed it. So I don't really know what the intro was, but I am Rachel. I make 3D printed wearable art. I'm just gonna share screen and go into my deck. Let's see.
Might take a moment. I just allowed you to share. Okay, perfect.
Oh, okay. So hopefully everyone's seeing the same thing. But anyways, so a little bit about me. I started off studying computer science. I liked the problem-solving nature of it, but I was really looking for something that was more visual. So I switched and my studies to 3D design, ended up graduating with a degree in 3D animation. After that, I moved to New York to study fashion at the Fashion Institute of Technology. While I was at FIT, I started 3D printing wearable art. Currently, I work as an activewear designer, and I'm continuing to create 3D printed wearable art in my free time, exploring the union between fashion and technology. And then this is just like a little bit of the work I'll be going through today. And then just a little bit of my process. Each dress kind of has a different process, but overall, all of these steps kind of incorporate everything. So first is inspiration and research. Then the second is like sketching and conceptualization. And then comes into like the actual physical draping and pattern making of the garment, 3D modeling, 3D printing, post-processing, and then fitting the garment with the 3D print together. And so the first dress I'll be introing is called the entity dress. So a little bit of my inspiration here. I actually made this for a thesis show at FIT. The theme was Mad Max meets Marie Antoinette. So I pulled a lot of inspiration from Tina Turner's look. Her name in the movie is Entity, hence the entity dress, and then also a little bit of the pannier inspiration from Sofia Coppola's Marie Antoinette. So the first step here was sketching. I actually brainstormed 25 initial ideas before landing on this one. There are a lot of variations, but I feel like this one was the most balanced and aesthetically pleasing. So I also sourced the fabrics I used, which was green silk lame, black moire, and then also iridescent feathers. Starting off, I draped all of the muslin against these style lines that I put on this mannequin. And then after that was done, I started 3D modeling at the same time and superimposed both the model and the muslin together to kind of see how the garment would come out. And then I got into 3D modeling here. I created the 3D collar in Autodesk Maya and then split the pieces for 3D printing. I was dealing with a pretty small printer at the time, so you can see all these pieces were pretty small. And then 3D printing in post-production, I 3D printed these pieces from an ABS filament on an FDM printer and assembled the pieces into one completed collar. Sanded the print and then painted it black. As you can see, I kind of ran out of black filament in some parts, so some of it was white. And this is the final look. So the black collar is the 3D printed part, and everything else is made from the fabric. And then the next dress I was going to go through is called the couture collection. For this one, I made a chest plate, a clutch, and then also the cuffs here. A little bit of my inspiration. I really take a lot of influence from film, so I was influenced by Metropolis and also Ex Machina, the movie, and also really liked Alexander McQueen's circuitry-inspired look from when he was at Givenchy. This is like the late 90s or so. And a little bit of the development. So for this piece, I actually collaborated with the 3D print studio in Brooklyn called Bold Machines. They had a new SLS printer that I really wanted to test out. there was two materials I wanted to play with. One was called the Bureau Clear and one was Tango Plus. The Tango Plus was a more flexible material, but it didn't have that crystal clearness as we see in this picture. It kind of has like a yellowish tint. So I ended up going with the Bureau Clear, which is rigid and has a very like clear glass look to it. This pink photo is actually a 3D printed quarter scale prototype. After looking at it, I realized that if I chose to 3D print it in the rigid Bureau Clear, I would need to adjust the waist because it's kind of hard to get everyone's waist to cinch in such a small area. So I adjust the model for the design. And then this is the redesigned chest plate and then the completed 3D printed piece. And then separately, I modeled the clutch and the cuffs in Rhino. As you can see, I modeled everything flat here, just the way the SLS printer works. Everything flat on a print bed makes it crystal clear, whereas everything curved kind of gets that frosted look. So like on the cuffs here, the sides were kind of frosted, and then on the sides of the chest plate, the sides were kind of frosted as well. But the clutch came out very, very clear. And this piece was in a MAC Cosmetics campaign a few years ago. They were doing like a Halloween like alien theme, which is pretty fun. And then the final dress I wanted to go through was the topology dress. This one was a bit of a different process because it wasn't so much 3D printing something separate and putting it with the garment, but rather 3D printing onto the fabric. Some of my inspiration for this was these like warped grid rooms that I kept finding on Pinterest. I really liked, and then also this kind of like glitch art that I was finding, and this Thierry Mugler dress from the I think it was the late '80s. So you read this one. So for this one, I draped the base of the dress in muslin and then divided the garment into pattern pieces. I laid out the grid lines of each pattern piece and translated those pieces into Illustrator. And then from the Illustrator, I made all the 3D models from the grids. And then here you can see each section was 3D printed separately onto the fabric. I used an FDM printer and used flexible TPU filament to fuse with the nylon. I had to use several different materials for this, including just normal ABS plastic, but the TPU had more of a give and also with the heat fused a lot better with the nylon mesh. You can see all the pieces laid out here. And then I started applicating them to the red base dress that I had sewn separately. As you can see, it's kind of like a huge giant puzzle piece coming together. But when it's all done, it seamlessly makes like a grid around the body. And this is the final dress on the runway, and you can see like the negative space between the black pieces makes this like really warped grid pattern. And this is my website and my email. If anyone wants to say hi, shoot me a hello. I'd love to hear from you. And I guess we're opening up for questions now.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks for showing us those things. It was super cool. If anyone has any questions, feel free to unmute yourself or just put it in the chat. I have a question, actually. I don't know, do you remember, so Zendaya wore this really awesome pink dress once, and I think the top was like 3D printed. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yes, that was Tom Ford. I actually don't think it was 3D printed, but it does look really, really cool. I know what you're talking about. Yeah. Yeah, that breastplate thing is kind of coming back. It was like popular in, I want to say like the late 80s, early 90s, because I think Issa Miyake did something that was kind of like that. And then Tom Ford has been bringing it back because I love that piece too. I do have a few like ideas in the future to do something very similar to that, but he didn't say it was 3D printed, but a lot of fashion designers actually do outsource like the fabrication of their design and to other people that it could well be 3D printed, and he just didn't say that it was.
Sure. Yeah.
We have a question from Kelvin. He wants to know about can you wash a 3D printed dress? Like, how do you clean?
Unfortunately, you don't. It's really hard. So the red dress especially can't really be washed. I just basically just try not to get it too dirty. I usually forewarn the models not to get too wild in it, but it's tricky.
Yeah. I got another one sent to me. Mindy wants to know what made you switch from computer science to 3D printing design?
I really wanted to do something more visual, and a lot of the 3D design classes incorporates coding still, so I felt like I wasn't completely abandoning what I had studied previously. But I just found that working visually was so much more rewarding for me. Like I started off coding just in normal kind of like data organization projects, and then ended up starting to study like OpenGL, and that kind of brought the more visual element in, and then going into Python. And then I realized that I didn't want to like sort data for forever, so I really liked the visual aspect of working with something that I could see, and also like when you make a coding mistake and it's visual, like you can see your mistake like immediately. So it's kind of nice.
Yeah, awesome. And Pella asks, what's a regular day at your job like? How much do you work with other people?
So for my day job, I actually design activewear. We incorporate a little bit of 3D in it actually, but not 3D printing so much. We use a program called BrowseWare and also Clo to 3D simulate garments before they're actually sewn. It's becoming a lot more popular now. Like, so the company I work for, I actually just switched jobs. I was at Victoria's Secret, and now I work for a company called Danskin, and they also make activewear. I've done activewear for both. But at Danskin, we produce garments for companies like Costco, Walmart, Amazon, and they all require 3D simulated garments for buying. So it's definitely becoming like more and more a relevant thing, knowing how to use technology in like multiple fields. But a regular day for my job, working from home right now is kind of weird. I used to work with more people, of course. So a regular day for me is a balance between creating new concepts for the future season. So what product is going to come out in the next 6 months, and also maintaining production for already approved garments. So what's about to be in store. So a bit of both of like looking at new samples or new clothes that come in from our factory in China and reviewing them on a fit model, and also like sketching new concepts for like future work.
Gotcha. I have a question. So recently on Instagram, you shared that ring that you made.
Oh yeah.
Can you talk a little bit more about that?
So I made like a Star Wars inspired ring. I have two. One's it depends on if you're on the light or the dark side. Of course, I have both because I feel like everyone's a little bit of both. But I actually have them. I don't know how well you can see on this camera, but.
Oh, can you stop sharing your screen so we can see you a little bigger?
That would help. So there's that one, which is the dark side. It's like a little imperial seal, and then there's this one, which is the Rebel Alliance symbol. So they're fun to have. But yeah, so when I was in school, I mostly learned how to use Autodesk Maya, which was really cool, but not so much for like real life things. So I've been teaching myself Rhino in my free time, and that's how I've made these lovely things. So Rhino is mostly used for drill design, but also like product design, just because everything in Rhino is scaled to real life. So however you design it in Rhino is going to come out like the exact scale that you want it to be. So yeah.
Can you talk a little more of the process of like designing and then actually getting like a ring? Like how do you go from like a file in your computer to like a physical ring?
So for these, I actually sent them to Shapeways to get printed because they do like the coating, the brass coating or silver on both, which is really nice to have that finish. Otherwise, I do have an FDM printer at home that I print, but that one's like not as high detail. But I don't know if that answers the question. Anyway.
Yeah, I don't know if students like know about Shapeways, but like if you have a model and you don't have a printer, like
yeah, they're great. They're really good at a bunch of different materials that you would have never possibly like thought of. And then the finishes on them is really nice. Like this one's I think brass and this one's silver, but they like you can finish something in like 24 karat gold if you really like want to give like I don't know a special gift to your mom or your family member. And there's a lot of there's like 3D print studios everywhere that especially in New York and I'm sure on the West Coast too that just have like normal FDM plastic printing.
awesome.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So if you want to get into 3D modeling, do you recommend like a basic software, one that's like really easy like to learn as your first one and also maybe free?
So I definitely know that when it comes to introducing 3D printing, a lot of people use SketchUp because it's a lot more like user friendly and it is quicker to 3D print something. If you want to get specifically into 3D modeling, I would say Blender is an open source program that people mostly use for animation, but it does teach a lot of concepts that you'll be needing to use in a lot of other programs. And I also know that a lot of people use like, I think it's called Shaper on iPads to do 3D modeling as well. I haven't tried it yet, but it's something about like it being on an iPad seems really interesting to me. So that'll probably be like something that I'll get into soon as well.
Cool, thanks.
We got another one from Calvin. Do you see 3D printed clothes or some aspect of this becoming a norm in our society?
I think yes, in a way. I think that as we become more conscious of our environmental impact on the world, especially how things are right now, like we need to be more conscious of where our materials are coming from. I know a lot of people are experimenting with actually 3D printing fabrics from either like recycled plastics or like other fibers. So not in the same way of like what I'm doing is more 3D printed sculptures, but I definitely see 3D printed fabrics becoming a thing. And then I think that will introduce more seamlessly into the way that fashion industry is already structured.
Awesome. Any other questions? I think we have time for like one or two more. Anybody else?
What are you guys all studying for? I'm just curious.
What are we studying? Yeah, so every student here is actually working on their own individual project.
That's awesome.
Yeah, we have Arduino projects, like sensor-based projects, game projects. We have lots of robotics projects, some like IoT stuff. And then we have a huge portion of our students are actually doing Raspberry Pi projects, doing like machine learning or image recognition or some game emulators. We have a little bit of everything.
Wow. That's
yeah.
so fun.
Yeah. And I would say that most of the students actually had very little experience with hardware before they came. And then now they're like, we're on week 3 of this session and they're like experts, like totally on their own, like doing really advanced stuff. All of our students are very smart. So
that's amazing.
Great job. Oh, here we go. We got a question coming from Pella. So she has a question about like the nature of the clothes that you make. Pella, do you mean in her job or the ones that she was talking about that are 3D printed? The 3D ones. Okay. Do you see the question?
Yes, I do. So I think the stuff that I make is definitely more like wearable art. People usually don't buy them from me. They usually will pay to rent, like the MAC Cosmetics ad and a few other like singers, actresses have rented them from me for like specific like photo shoot looks. So they're usually not bought. They're usually rented for me for like a short amount of time for an event or something. I do like the 3D jewelry modeling, I also do for friends. So a lot of my friends who either have their own clothing lines or jewelry companies, if they need like either hardware or jewelry done, they usually come to me and I'll like make something for them for that, but which they will actually be using to be more wearable. But for my personal work, it's definitely more like of a special occasion type of thing.
Okay, I think that that's all the time we have today. Rachel, thank you so much. It's really awesome to have you come here and kind of show another application of this tech that, you know, our students know about. So I think yeah, just very cool. Thank you for sharing. And
Thanks for having me.
if we have any like last questions, students, just feel free to send it to me or Brianna, and we'll make sure Rachel gets it, and we'll see if she can maybe spend a little time. Any last questions, we'll see if she can answer them. But yeah, I think that's it. Rachel, thank you so much. It was really a pleasure to have you.
Thank you.
Yeah, Rachel, thank you.
All right, everyone.
Thank you, guys.
Bye.
Thank you so
Bye.
much. Bye.